Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Tasha's Tales. Usually, I don't introduce my guests, they introduce themselves, but today I have to introduce you. Today, I am joined by 103-year-old Dr. Gladys, who has 80 years of experience as a holistic doctor of medicine. Gladys is now a great great grandma, and you grew up in India, didn't you, Gladys?
Yes, I did. I came to the States when I was 15 to start college.
Oh, wow. Okay. Amazing. So I don't normally read self-help books, Gladys, but I got your book, The Well-Lived Life, which has 6 secrets to health and happiness. And I can't begin to tell you how much this book has changed my perspective of life, how it wasn't just inspiring, but it was infectious too. It's
Thank you. That's what it was meant to do.
How old were you when you started writing the book?
Oh, I think I started writing it for years. It just kind of came together because I'd written other books, but they were all medical. But they didn't have the juice that they were all about medicine. But I had saved I couldn't put the essence of what it was all about into those. So I was able to do that with this book.
Wow. You share so many anecdotes and stories of your life, over 8 decades of stories. Did you have them jotted down somewhere, or is it all just from your recollection of your life?
Oh, it's just remembering. I
Wow.
call it memory lane. Because in the middle of the night, I can't sleep. I just go traveling down memory lane. There's so many important people, important experiences, important things that have happened to me during my life and to the people that I've been living with. And that it's wonderful to be able to share it.
And when we talk about the juice of life and that sense of purpose, what has been your sense of purpose and what's the juice that keeps you going?
People like you know,
Likewise.
yeah, when there are people who are reaching for something that I can help them with, that's what keeps me going. And it seems to me that right now, the people that I'm talking to are reaching for their true humanity. See, I have this is just my own thought. This is no theology. This is just my thinking that when God, whatever God is to any one of us, created the universe, God said, then he created the human being. And he said to us, humans, he said, now this universe is perfect. Everything is where it needs to be. It's just perfect. And you, human beings, are now being created. And you're the only ones in the whole universe who have the choice and free will that is not available to anything else in the universe. So therefore, I give you dominion over this universe. And we, in our arrogance, thought he said domination. And that's not what it is at all. But we thought it was. And so we took over. And boy, have we done some things that need correcting. We have reached 2 aspects of our humanity that at this point, as I'm talking to people around the world, I feel we're reaching back for our true humanity, because someplace along the line we got confused and taken off track.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned spirituality because that's one thing I wanted to ask you. What has spirituality meant to you in your life?
Spirituality,
Yeah.
to me, helps me formulate things. It's like in order to be able to help think things through, I've created in my mind the 5 L's that help me to think about what I think I and the first two are life and love. It's like a pregnancy. The mother and the baby are one. Life and love. It's the growing process of life and love is that they have to do it together. But then when the baby is ready to be born and takes his first breath and claims his own reality, he manifests himself. So we go from the femifesting to the manifesting. But if we don't do life and love without them being together, it doesn't really do the right thing, because love is the main creator of all. I mean, it brings the healing, it brings everything together. It's love that is the juice that connects all of this process to ourselves, because life without love couldn't exist.
In your book, you said love is the most powerful medicine. And it went on to make me think about those happy hormones that are released when we are around people, when we have the human connection.
Yes.
And I think it's very true. Even though we are speaking now over a screen, we still have that human connection, that love.
Oh, yes. It's love that connects us. And life and love have to work together. So, and then the next L is laughter. Laughter without love is just cruel. Breaks families up. It causes wars. It's just a mean thing. Laughter without love is real. But with love, it's joy and happiness. And then there's labor. Labor without love. Oh my, gotta go to work. Too many diapers. Love's too hard, and you just drag yourself through it. But labor with love is bliss. It's why you're doing what you're doing. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing. We work twice as hard, or 10 times or 15 times as hard doing the work that we want to do, because it is the juice that is bringing us with love into the process of doing that. So labor without love is drudgery, but labor with love is bliss. And then the 5th L is listening. Listening without love is empty sound, but listening with love is joy and happiness.
Beautiful.
No, it's understanding. I'm sorry. Listening with love is understanding.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we can listen to people, but actually hearing what they have to say is quite phenomenal, isn't it? I come from a South Asian culture, so when I read that you grew up in India, it really resonated with me. I come from a culture when my relatives or family members start to turn 50 and 60 years of age, their mindset and perspective changes and it becomes quite negative. What advice would you give to people who have that negative mindset?
Or they think they're not worth anything anymore.
Yeah, they're tired. What have I got to live for? Those kind of negative outlook on life.
Yeah, well, if they feel like that, present yourself to them. You're living for me. You're living for all the people that you know and that you love. That's what you're living for, because we need your love. And so if we can keep them connected to our juice, it's like my son, John. Well, actually, when we went through the COVID thing, I told my kids that they were the elderly, but I was the ancient one. But these people in my life feed my juice, because my feed juice is feeding them. I mean, it's the interaction of us. But then it's not doesn't stop there because you show up.
In this fast pace of life, we no longer have the villages to raise our children and communities. We've lost that interpersonal connection. How do you think we can get that connection back, that desire to be around people?
First of all, is to start looking for it. We're never getting it if we won't get it. It's sort of like if I have a good flashlight and I'm walking down a dark path, but this flashlight lets me take the next step and the next step and the next step. But as I'm walking down this pathway, if I look over either one side or the other, I may see a little flickering light someplace along the line. If I add my light to that little flickering light, it becomes huge. It's the way in which we connect with the world around us and within us. It brings us together when we actually start looking for it. It's the fact, if we're looking for the darkness, we're stuck in the darkness. But if we can start looking for the joy and happiness and beauty, let me tell you a story. James was this friend of ours, family friend of ours for years, bachelor. He used to eat a lot of his meals at our home. Our kids loved him, and we all loved James. And then he moved into dementia. So we put him in a home where he was well taken care of, and everything was fine as far as we could do for him at that point. And so one week I went over to see him, and I took him a little plant. It was in a little pot, just a little green plant. It wasn't anything much. But when I went in, I said to him, James, now this plant is yours to love and to take care of. And he doesn't know anything I'm talking about that I can see. I mean, I can't. He's not responding to anything because he is not, as far as I could tell, he wasn't with me. But I was explaining to him that this little plant was here for him to love and the plant to love him back and da 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 da. I'm just rattling that stuff. I don't know if he's hearing any of it because he's just, looking around. So I put the plant in the windowsill and told him about watering it and so on. And then I left. And a week later, I came back and he met me at the door and he says, magic, magic. And I jumped and I said, what? He says, look, box. And he goes over to the air conditioning box and he points to it. And he says, push button, everything gets cool. We're in Arizona. Okay. Everything gets cool. Plant loves cool.
Oh.
And then he says, push this button, everything gets hot. Plant doesn't like hot.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my. Now, for me, it was a perfect example of how love connects us with all life around us. And if we just accept that, no matter how old or how disconnected or however we have placed ourselves in darkness, if we start looking for the light, we'll find it.
Yeah.
Because it's there. There are other people who are looking to help us find it, and it'll show up. It's just a matter of what we choose to do because we're human beings and we have not only the ability, but the responsibility to choose and make decisions for ourselves and for the world around us and for the people around us.
In your book, you also mentioned the importance of movement. What do you mean by movement? Because I think that's quite a key thing, isn't it? And I love reading that because you mentioned in the book that you still walked 3,000 and I think 900, 800 steps.
Not quite that many right now, but
Okay.
uh,
And I
so I
found that,
walk. I try to get up to around that. Yes, and I just walk around my house here. I can't go out. I can't. I'm totally legally blind, so I can't see anything. So I can't go outside. I mean, what's there to see? So anyway, I have memories and history and love and sharing and people like you.
where do you get your motivation from?
Life from love. The people who have loved me since I was born. I almost died. I had malarial hepatitis when I was 2, and so on and so forth. I mean, life has not been easy. And, but it's, you know, we've hung in here.
Yeah, and it's important to mention when you say life hasn't been easy, you had dyslexia growing up, you faced your own challenges as a little girl in school, called
Oh,
names that were very unfair. And then not that long ago, we're talking 30 plus years ago, your husband Bill asked you for a divorce and you talked to us about your dark times in the book.
oh yes. Because that divorce totally shattered me. Bill and I had been married for 46 years. We'd created the American Holistic Medical Association. We had done all kinds of things. Bill had written articles, he'd written books, and we'd had 6 children, amazing children who were doing amazing work. I mean, to me, life was just where it needed to be. I was working as a doctor with patients that I had. And then Bill asks for a divorce. It completely blindsided me. I had no idea that this was going on in his mind. And so I'm riding home to my empty house in Casa Grande, and I'm in my car, and I'm screaming and I'm yelling and I'm saying horrible things. I mean, I was thrown into this dark place where I just absolutely could not imagine anything else. I mean, it was like I was stuck here. I was driving my car back to my home. I knew how to get there, and I was going to get there, but I just absolutely was stuck in this dark place, and I was screaming and yelling, and it was horrible. It was just awful. Until finally, I pulled off the side of the road, stopped my car, and I got out, and I left the door open, and I looked back in my car, and I said, what am I doing? I looked at myself, and I looked inside the car, and I said, the thing I've been talking about, do I want to live the rest of my life like that? I mean, that's awful. That's awful. That's ugly. So I went on, tried to catch my breath out in the open air. And all of a sudden, the words came down to me. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And there was my name. And I thought, oh, okay. I guess I got to figure this out another way, because my name is right in front of me, and I have to keep that incorporated in with what I'm going to be doing. And that stuff in there doesn't have any of that. Be glad is where I want to be.
Mm,
And so I went home and I told this whole thing to my dog, and she understood what I was saying.
of course.
And so the next day I went into town and I changed my license plate to Be Glad, so that every time I went into my car, I had to see that license plate that told me to be glad. And when I was driving through town, everybody behind me had the opportunity of looking at that and seeing it and knowing that they needed to be glad. So it's a way of that life has proceeded and gone on until that whole concept of my life being the essence of what I was doing had actually culminated in this book where it's about being glad. The essence of it is that's the juice of it, the joy and happiness and love.
I wanted to ask a little bit about nowadays you go to the doctor. It's happened to me many a times. I've gone to the doctors and they instantly want to prescribe me with medicine. Now you're a doctor, and what are your thoughts on how patients are being treated nowadays and medicine, as in pills, are offered straight away?
Well, I think the whole concept of holistic medicine is what Bill and I had worked through and had created the American Holistic Medical Association, which meant that love was the essence of healing, and that the prescriptions were there. Well, let me tell you a story. My eldest son is a retired orthopedic surgeon. So when he'd finished his training, he came through Phoenix on his way down to Del Rio, Texas, where he was going to start his practice. And he said to me, "Mom, I'm going into the world. I'm going to have people's lives in my hand. I don't know if I can handle that." And I said to him, "Well, Carl, if you think you're the one that does the healing, you have a right to be scared. But your job is, orthopedic surgery is awesome. If I have something broken, I don't want a butcher trying to fix it up. I want a good orthopedic surgeon who knows what he's doing to do it." So that's where the medical part of this whole medicine and so on come into it. We're trained to do certain things, to get rid of certain diseases, to get, to work through. But that's not what does the healing. So I said to him, so it's your job to do your orthopedics and do it with love and share it with your patient who has within them the physician who does the healing. Because within each one of us is a physician which does the healing. And if we can accept that as physicians and work with that aspect of what it is that we are doing, is sharing our loving knowledge with this person who is there to take that and use it the way the physician within them can incorporate love into the whole process, and then the healing happens.
Yeah. You also said that your parents, who sound like incredible human beings, told you to love absolutely everyone,
Yes.
and that, how important it is to love those that are around us. And you also mentioned how we all have a choice and how we all can make different choices. And I think that goes back to looking at life with a different lens, in a more optimistic lens.
Right. Well, I do still have dyslexia, but as a child, it was very, very hard for me. I was a class dummy. I had to repeat first grade a second time. And so I really, really, in school, was really damaged. But third grade was different. I had a teacher who saw something in me that the other teacher had not seen. So she appointed me class governor because I could talk and I was doing other things in the class that came naturally to me. And so we were going to do a play for our whole student body. And it was my job as class governor to take the lead role. And the play was The Frog Jumped Over the Pond. And so my mother made me a frog outfit, dyed it green and all of that. And we had this pan of water in the center of the stage. And it was my job, since I was bigger than the other kids, since I could jump over that, because I'd gone through an extra year of first grade, okay? So I could jump over this when the others may not. So I walked out onto the stage with great confidence. I knew I could do this. So I strut out on the stage. But the first people I see in the front row of the audience are my two older brothers. And it just threw me off my step enough that instead of jumping over the pond, I landed in it. So I'm standing in that pond. My frog suit is beginning to fade. I'm crying. I can't move. The audience is hysterical. They're laughing. They're just laughing, doubled up laugh. Everybody thinks it's the funniest thing that's ever happened. And I think it's, I'm broken. I mean, I'm just, I've done it again, I've failed again. So the teacher has to come and lead me off the platform. When we came home, my brothers told my mother this, and they said it was such a great thing. He says, everybody was laughing, and finally my mother says, all right, boys, now you've had your fun. What can we as a family do to help Gladys if she ever gets into this kind of a situation again? And I don't know what the family did to help me, but I'm telling you, there has been time after time when I've stumbled as I've gotten up to this stage, and I've been able to say something like, oh, I'm such a drama queen, or something like that. A simple statement that immediately I had the audience in my hand. I mean, the audience was immediately listening to what I had to say. So whatever it was that my family gave me to use in the way of understanding how I was going to go through life, that was the kind of thing that really brought me to this point. The way we work with our children, the way we teach, the way we live our own lives with the lives of our children is so essential.
And I have two children, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. What advice would you give to me to make sure that I am giving my children joy and love and connection and making sure that the juices are all flowing nicely?
That's your focus. If you make that your focus, you'll know how it needs to appear at this time in your life, because that's where you're living at that time. That, you're in a rosebud of love, a plant, that's just this wonderful place, which is your family. And you have the opportunity to live in that kind of inner beauty that you understand, because these wonderful little people the things that they bring up and the things they teach us are just awesome. This son of mine that's here with me, who's now in the 70s, when he was 7 years old, came in and he says, Mama, I wish Jesus was here. And I said, well, I do too. Why you? He says, because I have questions. And I said, well, maybe I could help you. Oh, he says, you don't have the answers. So I said, well, try me. And he said, but you don't have the answers. And I said, well, just try me. So he says, okay, how could God be if he never got started? Oh, I said, oh, well, maybe it's like a circle. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. He says, I knew you didn't have the answers, and off he goes. Well, of course, he's a retired Presbyterian minister. those questions. And then my other son, the next one, came in one day and he's running around and he says, I know, he's 4. I know something. I know something. I said, well, what's that, Bobby? He says, if I make a friend and he makes a friend and he makes a friend, it's going to go all around the world and come back to me. Of course, he's a psychologist.
Anyone listening to you, what would be the last few words you would like to share for anyone who's in a dark place?
You'll never see the light if you don't look for it. You have to look for it. So look for the light and look for love. Because if you have love that's reaching out, love will reach back to you. If you think that you're without love, watch the things around you that are growing, whatever. Find something that you can actually physically let yourself know that you love. And with that love, continue to grow.
Thank you so much, Gladys, for your time, for your wisdom, for your patience, for all the memories that you've shared with us. This is one of my favorite books, and I think everyone should have this book on their bedside table for inspiration.
You. I hope it reaches through the way it's intended. And I know that it will, because it's in that direction that it's going to reach the hearts and life and love of people.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All
It's
right.
been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.